Hello, this is Elena. Like, Elena, good grief, I've done read this so much I'm crazy. This is Leah, and I'm on the next part of the book. So, who are you going to marry, Bonnie? Meredith put in deftly. I don't know. My grandmother told me the ritual for finding out, but I never tried it. Of course, Bonnie struck a sophisticated pose. He has to be outrageously rich and totally gorgeous. Like our mysterious dark stranger, for example. Particular if nobody else wants him. She cast a wicked glance at Elena. Elena refused the bait. What about Tyler Smallwood? She murmured innocently. His father certainly's rich enough. And he's not bad looking, agreed Meredith solemnly. That is, of course, if you're an animal lover, all those big white teeth. The girls looked at each other, and then simultaneously burst into laughter. Bonnie threw a handful of grass at Meredith. She brushed it off and threw a dandelion back at her. Somewhere in the middle of it, Elena realized that she was going to be all right. She was herself again and not lost. Not a stranger, but Elena Gilbert, the queen of Robert E. Lee. She pulled the apricot ribbon out of her hair and shook the hair free about her face. I've decided what to do my oral report on, she said, watching with narrow eyes as Bonnie finger combed grass out of her curls. What, said Meredith? Elena tilted her chin up, to gaze at the red and purple sky above the hill. She took a thoughtful breath and let the suspense build for a moment. Then she said coolly, "The Italian Renaissance." Bonnie and Meredith stared at her, then looked at each other and burst into whoops of laughter again. "Ha ha!" said Meredith, when they recovered. "So the tiger returneth." Elena gave her feral grin. Her shaken confidence had returned her, and though she didn't understand it herself, she knew one thing. She wasn't going to let Stefan Salvatore get away alive. "All right," she said briskly. "Now listen, you two. Nobody else can know about this, or I'll be the laughing stock of the school, and Caroline would just love any excuse to make me look ridiculous. But I still want him, and I'm going to have him. I don't know how yet, but I am. Until I come up with a plan, though, we're going to give him the cold shoulder." "Oh, we are?" "Yes, we are. You can't have him, Bonnie. He's mine, and I have to be able to trust you completely." "Wait a minute," said Meredith, a glint in her eye. She unclasped the pin from her blouse, then holding up her thumb, made a quick jab. "Bonnie, give me your hand." "Why?" said Bonnie, eyeing the pin suspiciously. "Because I want to marry you. Why do you think?" "Idiot." Oh, all right. Ow! "Now you, Elena." Meredith pricked Elena's thumb efficiently, and then squeezed it to get a drop of blood. "Now," she continued, looking at the other two with sparkling dark eyes, "we all press our thumbs together and swear. Especially you, Bonnie. Swear to keep this secret and do whatever Elena asked in relation to Stefan." "Look, swearing with blood is dangerous," Bonnie protested seriously. "It means you have to stick to your oath no matter what happens." "No matter what, Meredith." "I know," said Meredith grimly. "That's why I'm telling you to do it. I remember what happened with Michael Martin." Bonnie made a face. "That was years ago, and we broke up right away anyway. And, oh, all right, I'll swear." Closing her eyes, she said, "I swear to keep this a secret and to do anything Elena asked about Stefan." Meredith repeated the oath, and Elena, staring at the pale shadows of their thumbs joined together in the gathering dusk, took a long breath and said softly, "And I swear not to rest until he belongs to me." A gust of cold wind blew through the cemetery, fanning the girl's hair out and sending dry leaves fluttering on the ground. Bonnie gasped and pulled back, and they all looked around and giggled nervously. "It's dark," said Elena, surprised. "We better get started home," Meredith said, refastening her pen as she stood up. Bonnie stood too, putting the tip of her thumb into her mouth. Goodbye, said Elena, softly, facing the headstone. The purple blossom was a blur on the ground. She picked up the apricot ribbon that lay next to it, turned and nodded to Bonnie and Meredith. Let's go. Silently, they headed up the hill toward the ruined church. The oath sworn in blood had given them all a solemn feeling. And as they passed the ruined church, Bonnie shivered. With the sun down, the temperature had dropped abruptly. The wind was rising, and each gust sent whispers through the grass and made the ancient oak trees rattle their dangling leaves. I'm freezing, Elena said, pausing for a minute by the black hole that had once been the church door and looking down at the landscape below. The moon had not yet risen, and she could just make out the old graveyard and Wickery Bridge beyond it. The old graveyard dated from Civil War days, and many of the headstones bore the names of soldiers. It had a wild look to it. Brambles and tall weeds grew on the graves, and ivy vines swarmed over crumbling granite. Elena had never liked it. Okay, and I'll have to do this in another chapter. My phone's trying to turn off. See you soon.